And we're back on the show. Me, Hugh, Sandra.
Yep. This is going to be an interesting discussion.
It's really good. We've got Kathy Walker back on the show. You were here last May.
Yes.
And we were talking about remedies the last time.
We were talking about remedies. I've been making remedies and using remedies for years in healing. And as time went on, I learned about emotional healing. And I thought, why would I use emotional healing? I've got the remedies. Why would I need that? It's so much more work.
Yeah, because it sounds like,
It's true, though. There's some truth to that.
But what is emotional? I mean, it sounds sort of obvious or self-evident, but what is emotional healing?
Emotions does, but emotional healing is not necessarily so self-evident, correct?
Well, what's interesting, Sandra, is when we grew up, at least when I grew up, my parents would always say to me, just handle everything. Don't be telling us what's going on, because they couldn't do anything about it anyway. They just wanted us to be okay.
Yeah.
And if anything was up emotionally, it was not meant to be talked about or figured out, because they didn't know what to do with it.
Right.
Or my mom would say, all that person needs is a good swift kick in the ass. That's what my mom
That'll
would
clear
say.
that emotion.
That'll help.
No, that'll just
so that's how we were raised.
Yeah.
And you keep thinking, well, there's nothing wrong with me. I don't need to talk about anything. So as I used remedies over many years, I got really good at figuring out what people needed. And then one day someone came in and they didn't get better from the remedies I gave them. But I thought, I'll tell you this example. He was a healer from India visiting Canada. Someone had referred him to me, and he'd had a cough for a long, long time. So he came in to see me, and I said to him, when you lie down, is there pain in your back? And he said, yes. I said, well, that's bacteria. It's pneumonia. You have pneumonia. So here's a remedy for that. And I gave him 2 remedies, actually. So he said, thank you. He went. He was traveling through Canada. He took the remedies. He called me when they were finished, and he said, nothing's changed. I'm thinking, really? But could you please come back again? He says, I'm going back to India in a couple of days. I said, well, please come back in, and I'll figure this out. So I thought, oh, my gosh, I know I had the right remedies, because I've been working with remedies a long time at this point. And I could also see that he'd had this a long time. The whites of his eyes were sort of grayish. And I told him that. I said, your lungs have been having trouble for quite a while. And when you lie down and you have pain in your back, that's definitely pneumonia from bacteria in the lungs. So nothing had changed. His cough was there. The back pain was there. And he came back in, and I said to him, tell me about your life. How are you doing? And I just had a sense he wasn't happy. He really wasn't happy. And at first I took a step back and I thought, he's a healer, and how willing is he going to be to work with me on his healing? But he admitted, no, I'm not that happy, and I really wish that I could get married and have children. And I said, well, why, so we went back and forth about it, and there were issues in his life that he was quite unhappy with, and he wanted to change, but he really didn't see how he could change it. So as we worked through issues, he got to the point where he changed some of his beliefs about his life. And then I realized, okay, something shifted. He actually has shifted something negative in his life, and now we have the opening to do the remedies. I sent him back to where he was staying with the same 2 remedies. He called me 2 days later, and he said, everything's better. And the only thing that had changed was the emotional work I did. So I went, oh, now I know why I know about emotional healing. I'm supposed to use it on people. It's going to make a difference.
So now Kathy, do you use it in conjunction with your remedies? Is it together?
Sometimes I need remedies, sometimes I need healing, sometimes I need both.
Okay.
So I just have to determine each time when someone comes.
And sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask why, and this is going to get, I think, to the heart of the matter, if we can get the answer, is why don't the remedies work? And what is it that shifts that then all of a sudden, why are the remedies able to work?
Yes, it took me a while to figure that out too. And as I understand it, you have your physical body, then your emotional, mental, spiritual bodies are outside of that. And so if you have issues going on the spiritual level that are unresolved and are negative, the only way that you know there's anything wrong is by physical symptoms. So it's important to understand the deeper cause of the physical symptoms, and that's the thing that I've said that I want to specialize in, is looking at the root cause.
Well, then, isn't it the case then, wouldn't all, if you look, let's talk about pneumonia for a second, right? A bacterial pneumonia, like in this case. Our germ theory of disease says that it's the bacteria that causes the pneumonia. But what you're saying, and what I sort of believed anyway, is that it's something deeper than that. The reason for the presence of those bacteria is like it's kind of like an onion, but the real cause is deeper.
Yes, not always, but often. So when you get into an issue that's been there a long time and people have tried different things, most likely there's going to be something, either a negative belief, a thought, or a trauma that needs to change in order for the shift on a physical level to happen.
Okay, so it's not always the case then?
Not always the case. There are people that come in and they might have something quite serious. They're easy to work with because they're fairly clear in their life. They know what they're about, they're happy, life is working for them, and it's just something they need help with to strengthen their physical body.
Okay, so I guess, is that the trigger then? Is that the identifier is that if somebody's happy and their life's going great, then if they're ill, it's probably a physical reason that can be treated with a remedy. But if somebody's got some other kind of issues, some kind of
chronic
deep sadness or underlying...
Yeah, or beliefs that their life isn't what they want it to be. So, for instance, I've worked with people that have had skin issues. A lot of people have skin issues. So in this person, I'm a homeopath as well. I gave them sulfur, and it's a remedy that's good for a number of skin issues. They took the remedy, nothing got better. So before they came back, I kind of thought, what is sulfur all about? Because sulfur came up really strong. And as I looked it up in the periodic table, on the physical level, sulfur is present in all proteins. And then I looked at, well, what's symbolic about sulfur and protein? Well, protein's handled by the liver. We are governed by the right-hand side of our bodies, governed by the liver, which has to do with men in our life, our male side. It starts with our father. So how our liver is often affected by how we are with our fathers. So when this person came back, I said, how's your relationship with your father? Oh, I want nothing to do with him. So there was a strong reaction. And there was a lot that had happened in their childhood that they hadn't resolved, and they thought, if I just ignore my dad and wait long enough, I'll never have to deal with this. But that wasn't true at all. So we started talking about what had happened in their childhood, how to understand their father's side of it, and they got to a much better place with their feeling about their father and their concern about never wanting to speak to him. And as a matter of fact, they started to have a good relationship with their father. They took the sulfur remedy and other remedies like that, and their skin got much better.
That's a really good point, too. You think because the person's not in your life, they've moved away, or even if they passed away, you think, okay, I don't have to deal with it. But that's where the emotional stuff starts to play. Because just because they're physically gone doesn't mean they're emotionally gone, right?
That's right. They haven't emotionally gone from you.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
I think it's how we look at what's going on in our lives. There's so much that happens that we're supposed to come to terms with. And when we don't come to terms with it and we bury things and then we bury more things, when we finally have symptoms or we have chronic symptoms, those things that were buried need to be dusted off, examined, and come to terms with.
So now how do you approach this then? Because, it almost sounds like on the one hand, it could be similar to traditional psychotherapy, or psychology, where really it's talk therapy, you're helping the people realize certain things about themselves. But what makes it different than that? And the other thing is, what shifts?
Well, it's almost the same answer. So because I'm intuitive, I use that information with their permission, to figure out where in their body is their disharmony, and is it physical or emotional. And it could be emotional, mental, or spiritual, which are fairly interrelated. Then when I know that it's held in a certain area of the body, on the skin, or in a chakra, or in the heart, or something like that, as we talk about it and I do a regression healing, I take them back to a moment of time that could represent many traumatic moments for them. But I just say, we don't have to look at everything, but let's look at one thing and see how you feel about it, and see if we can release it and recreate it in a positive way. And then I feel the shift. And you're right, too, not everyone changes from a healing right off the bat. Some people might take a couple of times to really shift it over. You know, that person with their father, I definitely needed to talk about that a few times, because there had been something that was stuck in their mind in a certain way, and they may not have thought it was negative, but they thought, this is the best way I can deal with this right now. And to them it wasn't negative, but to me I could feel how different people in their lives were affecting them, and how it was either kind of spiky or smooth. And when I feel that kind of spikiness and rigidness, and then afterwards the smoothness and the, okay, I can connect with them and I feel much better, then I know they're going to go forward with much more calm in their body, able to heal.
But do you find, Kathy, that people are more hesitant about doing the emotional than taking the remedy?
Well, that's a good point. I try to explain it as I'm explaining it to you, that it's a fairly mild type of shift.
Okay.
And it's not traumatic. I don't believe in trauma, and I don't even talk about regression too much, because there's regression and there's regression. Some regression, the therapist will just take them to a past life or a past moment and say, look at this is where it all came from, and then bring them out of it. So when I go into a moment, I help them feel where it's stuck in their body, clear it out with just energy or color, and then replace it with something more positive. So we've healed it before we even move back. The whole process might take an hour or two at the most. And then I can feel that I have them make the shift, as opposed to me saying, don't you think it should be like that? I'll say to them, well, is there a different way we could look at this? And they realize they're kind of on the spot. Yeah, maybe I could. And then when they cut some slack and some understanding, and it helps them feel more calm, they feel different before that they've even left.
It sounds like it's almost really a question of bringing it to their consciousness, that these things they're not thinking about them in a way it happened a long time ago, they've just left it behind, but the way they thought about it has become kind of just part of the foundation of their awareness, yes. Right?
Well, consciousness is a big part of it, and that's why I can't just make a remedy to heal this.
Right.
They need to be conscious of what the problem is and consciously deciding to change. And if they are not willing, a willing participant and conscious of what they're changing, the shift won't happen. So we can talk all day about things, but what I'm looking for is a shift, and when the shift happens, then the energy shifts, and I can follow it up with a remedy or not, depending on, it's really about bringing people back into their power. When they feel empowered, they have a lot more energy.
Now, you mentioned regression here. Like, are you doing hypnotherapy on people?
It's similar to hypnotherapy, but it's regression in that you're just going to a moment, usually in this lifetime, about something that happened. And I can get a sense of, I talked to someone years ago. You're getting me into some really interesting stories. Someone came and they said, I have this pain in my foot, and I go to everyone and nothing heals it. I really need some help with it. So they came to me, and I said to them, well, let's see what this is about. I think there's something going on in your childhood that we need to heal. And she said, okay, well, you tell me what it is. I don't know that I believe in this. And I said to her, there's something at age 22 And she said, we're going to go to any moment but that. I'll heal anything but that.
Whoa. So this is something you just picked up.
Well, yeah, I get shown from her higher self, go to this age. No, I'm not going to heal that. I'll go to anything but that.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, it turned out to be a time, she said, I said, well, that's the moment we've got to go to, and this issue's been bothering you so long. And she said, well, okay, I'll tell you what happened. I was dating this guy, I was in university, we were having a great time, and he went out and he went with someone else. It broke us up, and I was heartbroken. And I was so heartbroken, I was going to commit suicide. And she said, to this day, I've never gotten over that. And
wow.
This is 30 or 40 years later.
Wow.
So I said, I know that this has to be healed in order for this foot part to go away. This foot pain that you're having, that you're hobbling around and you can't put a pair of shoes on and you're having this much trouble. And symbolically, the foot is about moving forward past this moment. So she wasn't happy with me, and she didn't want that to be what it was. But I know that that's what it was, and I don't know how much healing she recovered from at that moment, because it was sort of against her will at that moment, and she didn't come back to work on it again, but I'm sure she thought about it after she left.
But you think if she's...
amazing.
Yeah. So if you would have been able to do some... Did you give her a remedy for it?
I did. I gave her a remedy. But again, I'm back to the point of what's happening. If she's got so much energy on this, I hate this guy, my life's never been okay since then, I'll never forget it.
She'll never heal.
Yeah, there's not enough energy in the body to heal. Mostly, she's stopping it from putting her energy in this negative moment.
Isn't that interesting, though? A person would rather stay sick for 40 years.
But that's not how she sees it.
Oh my goodness, though,
Yeah.
and that's more than half her life.
I hope she thought about it, though.
I'm
But
sure
I
she
hope
must
so.
have.
I hope
Right?
so,
But
yeah.
but then what would you have done, say?
Well, you pretty much have to leave people to it. You can't,
No, I
push.
mean, if she came back to you and said,
Oh,
look...
we'd talk about it more.
So you just, try to zero in on the...
Well, I talked to her about most likely her whole life was affected by this, but it didn't need to continue, even though it had been that many years.
Mm-hmm.
I think she didn't want to be wrong in that holding on to this negative moment was causing her that much trouble. So she might have felt at fault. And we might have needed to talk about what a big moment this was for her in her life to heal and move on from.
It's funny how people get so attached to their worldview or their
identity,
they need to be right about it. They'd rather be right than well, right?
Yeah.
Well, I have another story. Someone who'd been ill for a long time had been at home and been cared for. And as we started working together, I got to a place fairly not too far along. It was a digestive issue. And I said, you're not really that sick. And you're in the house all the time. Could you, go out of the house? Well, I don't know if I said they weren't that sick, but I said, could you just leave the house for 15 minutes? It was winter. I said, put your coat on, be warm enough, but just go out in the yard. Go outside 15 minutes and then come back in and see how you do with that. And he didn't know what I was getting at. I wasn't really sure. I just got a sense, tell him this. And so he reported back, okay, that was fine. I said, well, could you do it now for, a little bit longer? And try and do this on a daily basis. So what happened was he started getting more confident. And within 2 weeks, he was not just home in bed sick. He was leaving the house. He was going out, walking around the block, driving, getting places, and his energy came back.
So what was it all about then?
Well, you know what? I had to figure that out too, because I didn't know going in. I just know, tell him this.
Oh.
And so he was willing, and he went with it. What I feel in retrospect, what it was about was in his house and the people taking care of him, they all had this energy of, you're not well, you're not getting better, this is terrible, nothing's working. And as he left the house, he left that energy behind, and he didn't need anyone to go outside with. And he suddenly realized, oh, I'm okay to be outside on my own. Oh, this worked out. Oh, I can come back and I'll be okay again. And so he learned from that quickly to just kind of trust what I said and that it was going to work. And we've been all over the body now, healing things that are very spiritually related rather than physical. And he hasn't been needing any remedies, just, okay, what's next? What do I need to do next? And what's that about?
Wow. Now, you mentioned that I was told, and then you mentioned higher self earlier. So do you communicate with some other beings, or is it just something you just do, or is it something you're conscious of, or
well,
do you
I'm
channel?
I'm consciously, as I channel, I tune into their higher self, and it goes to my higher self then to me. So even if someone said to me, I have pain in my shin, then I would ask their higher self, is that a bone issue? Is it a muscle issue? Is it a nerve issue? Is it an emotional issue? And their higher self would say to me, this is what it is. But I have to have their permission. I can't just go down the street and say, see that guy, that's what's going on with them. If they give me permission, then I get accuracy. If I just go around trying to tell people, that toe pain, you better do something about it, it's like, no, I can't get accurate information. It's about permission.
So now, why can't people just ask their higher self themselves?
Well, they can, but they need practice doing that.
Right.
And a lot of people, as
don't
people work with me
right?
and they do regression, I get them to connect to the higher self and I ground them. And then they end up being much more intuitive than they were before we worked together.
That's great.
How did you get into this? How did you get in tune with your ability to contact?
Well, I learned from a lot of different healers, and I took classes, and I trusted that if intuition was going to come, I started with a pendulum with Hannah Kroger, and I was really good at it, but I didn't want to be using the pendulum all the time. And Hannah taught me one thing, and she said, intuition is much more important than scientific testing. So you can go into say, even a health food store, and there'll be hundreds of things that you could use, and they've all been scientifically tested. And I'm sure they're all very good products. But when you use your intuition, you feel what is best for that person, as opposed to what's a good product.
Right.
And that changes everything.
Yeah.
So from that, my intuition got stronger, and then I learned how to understand where it comes from, my higher self, the grounding, and creating a sort of a connection so that what I was receiving I could trust. And I've taught people how to do that in classes, how to connect to the higher self, know that the truth is coming through, and that they can rely on the intuition that's coming.
That's pretty cool.
That's very cool.
So,
that's very cool.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking about so many people they're just, they're like, I have to do what the doctor tells me, right? They don't even Google their problem, right? To see if they can, well, first of all, take responsibility for their own health, but also use their own brain, their own intuition to try to find either a remedy or a solution or maybe even a practitioner that can help them, right?
Well, that's a really good point, Hugh. I ask that the people coming to me are looking for alternatives. So I don't want to spend my time talking people into alternatives. I'm here in Toronto because I know that there's a lot of consciousness here. There's a lot of people, and there's a lot of people looking for alternatives. And if they're not looking for alternatives, that's fine with me. I know that there's enough people that I have to work on, and that there's other healers that are also busy. So I'm always looking for the people who are looking for alternatives, that are looking for the type of healing that I want to give them. And I don't worry about everyone else. It may not be in their reality. Like some people feel that if they don't do everything their doctor says, they haven't done proper healing. And other people would say just the opposite. So I think everyone has a choice, and based on their level of reality and what's true for them.
So, I mean, people that are watching this right now and they're resonating with you, right? Or maybe they're just trusting maybe their intuition is telling them that maybe you could be the one who can help them through a problem that they haven't been able to get help for. If you can describe your ideal client, who would that be?
It would be someone who's more educated, who looks at things in a bigger picture, interested in alternatives. They may have already tried some alternatives, and they're willing to go with knowing a little bit deeper about where this all might have come from in their life. Mm-hmm. Because when someone has something that is bothering them, the biggest part of it is, why me? And the why me is often a very spiritual a question and answer.
Mm-hmm. But they don't know it going in, right?
No, it's hard to know for yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
And you really need an objective opinion from someone outside of you that could say, this is my sense of it. And it needs to make sense for them.
Mm. Yeah.
Okay, so people can check out the website, AskKathyWalker.com, and reach you that way. Is there anything else you want to leave us with today?
Are you doing anything, any talks or anything coming up?
Not at the present moment, but I'm always happy to speak to someone on the phone and give them some feedback before they decide if they want to work with me or not, so it feels like a good fit.
So they can call you. Is the number on the website?
The number's on the website. They can also email me, and we can set up exactly the right time to speak.
And do you sometimes work with people over Skype or on the phone, or is it always in person?
Yes, I work around the world. I had someone from Australia get in touch with me, and New Zealand, South Africa. For them, it was just a good sense of, this is the type of healing I want to do. Mm-hmm. And I just love working, so I want to keep working for years and years and do
that's
as much
how you know
work
it's
as I
not
can.
work, right, Kathy?
That's right.
How
It's not
calling,
work.
Right?
It's a calling. That's right.
Wow. So, of course, people can go to the website now, get in touch with Kathy, and of course, we have that other video that we did, which was more about the remedies, right? And
yes.
So people can look you up and watch.
Well, I
that
posted it on my website, so people have been looking at that, and I put it out in a newsletter.
That's great.
So
is it working for you?
It is. It definitely is.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Awesome.
Thank you.
Super. Okay. Well, thanks, Kathy.
Thank you. That was a great discussion.
Yeah. So let's take a little break. We got more coming up here on Liquid Lunch on a Wednesday. We'll be right here on thatchannel.com.